Without a vision, the people perish. Welcome to Vision Plus, a program featuring a positive outlook, dealing with everyday situations of marriage, children, and business. Believing Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Teacher, author, speaker, delighting audiences from New York to Sacramento with a heart and message for the people today. Bonnie would like to remind you of the 800 number on the screen. Please feel free to call at any time throughout the broadcast and share your concerns. Leave your prayer request and someone will pray with you. And now, teacher, author, and speaker, Bonnie Libhart.
Hello, you're watching Vision Plus. I'm Bonnie Libhart, and with me, Nikki Langham, and I call her Nikki.
Yes.
And she works with the Chamber of Commerce, African American Chamber of Commerce, North Alabama, and she is here. We're writing a book together, plus some other things, and I want you, Nikki, to tell me about your life a little bit. You had told me that you got pregnant for the third time. We're going to just jump right into that part of the story, and you really didn't want to be pregnant.
No, I really didn't want to be pregnant. I already had 2 daughters, and I just didn't feel like I wanted to have another child. I was just so devastated.
Well, just tell me all about it.
Well, what happened was when I was about 24 years old, I found out I was pregnant with my 3rd child. I had lost a cousin of mine. I was very close to her, and it was very difficult to realize that she was gone, and it was just a very hard time. And I do remember when I got pregnant, I thought, well, that's okay. I'll just have an abortion. I don't want any more kids, and it was an easy thing to do, I thought. But what happened as soon as I said that is God told me, no, you cannot do that. You must have this baby. And I remember at the time knowing that there was no way I could ignore that. I couldn't ignore God's voice, so I did that. I didn't argue. I just said, okay, I'll have him. But I stayed very depressed. I was so depressed I wouldn't eat. I slept all the time. I was a very good mother to the 2 children I already had, but as far as myself, I didn't care. I isolated myself from everyone. I isolated myself from my mother, my friends. I didn't do anything. And one day I was on the couch, leaning, as far as anybody else was concerned, dead to the world. And I remember that this voice just came over me and just told me, just as clear as day, get up. This voice said, if you don't get over this depression that you have, you're going to bring your son into this world with a spirit of depression. Do you want that on your hands? And the way the voice said it was in such a stern but loving way, the same way any parent would say to you, get up and do it now. So I remember as soon as this voice said that, it was like a shot of electricity just hit me, and I remember I just sat straight up, just straight up. And I remember thinking to myself, because at this time I was pregnant and big enough that the baby was kicking, but I didn't really feel it kick a lot because of how depressed I was. And I remember immediately my son just started kicking, and I got up and I was doing laundry. So I took the bag and I got the clothes, started to fold the clothes, and from that moment on I just had a better outlook. And about the time that my son turned 3, he's 8 years old now, I got a prophecy from a very reputable woman in our church that said that he was going to be like David to God and serve in God's army. And I remember thinking, this is amazing. And I know that things happen for a reason. So when God talks, you cannot dismiss it. He never ever abandons you.
So how did you have the money and the resources and everything to go on?
Well, I'll tell you, I had family members who were very supportive of me, and there were hard times. I wasn't always able to financially support myself, but the Father and I were very close, and we are even today, and he was always very supportive as well. And also, I think that there's an idea that, people often say, I can't afford a baby, I can't take care of a child, but I'll tell you this, God doesn't create anything that he doesn't take care of. That's true. So there was no, I may not have always been able to buy everything for my child that I wanted, but none of my children had to suffer. None of them had to suffer. None of them had to go without. They were big, healthy babies when they were born. They're big, healthy children now. And they've never had to suffer for the things that they needed. Even some of the things they wanted, they were able to get. So it's not that bad. God always provides.
Now, you I met you through the Christian Job Corps, I think it's called, and Christian Women's Job Corps. And I want to know how they helped you and how you became so important in the Chamber of Commerce.
Well, what happened was I had graduated from college in May of last year, yes, with a degree in communications, and a bachelor's degree communications. And I remember kind of going through. I had one job where I was helping some disadvantaged children in a specific school here in Madison, and that job ended because we lost funding, and I wanted to do something else, and I felt that I hadn't. I believe that you should listen to God, that God and Jesus directs your life, that you are able to get where you need to be because of God. And I remember that I had kind of lost direction. I didn't know what else to do anymore. So when I found out about Christian Women's Job Corps offering classes, I thought Christian, Job Corps, two things that I really think are important. I need to have both of these things. So I got involved with them. And when I got in Christian Women's Job Corps, it was more of this fellowship that you have with other women who are Christians, women who really, really help you in a way that goes beyond just, we preached and we had Bible study, but we also had, really, really practical courses about how to love yourself, how to apply the teachings of Jesus in your life. We had everything that you could need. They really build you up to go out and do something different with your life. And so I was able to really do things that I had only dreamed about prior to Christian Women's Job Corps. After it was done, I actually did those things.
What were some of the things you wanted to do that you didn't think you'd ever dream you'd like to be able to do? Boy, I have done that. I know I grew up on a cotton farm in Arkansas and got married at age 16, and so I know all about having children and hardly a job, and but there is something inside of you that I know God gives you that you want to do more with your life, and you don't want to stay, for me, back in that cotton field. I wanted to get an education, so I went on to school and on to school and on to school and on to school and on to school. Finally got my doctorate, working all the time, and 3 children. And it is not easy to do, but and I wanted, when I was a little girl, Nikki, they would have, and you were in junior high or something, and they'd say, how many, they'd have an assembly in school, how many want to be teachers? Now, a bunch of people hold up their hand. How many want to be landowners or farmers, because I live rural area? How many want to be secretaries? How many want to be preachers? How many want to be, and they named all engineers, doctors, lawyers. They never mentioned radio or television. So I never, ever, ever, ever got to hold up my hand, because they didn't mention, do you want to write books? Do you want to be on radio? Do you want to be on TV? And those were my dreams. And so now I've written 8 books, and I've done a TV show, interviewed over 5,000 people, and it came because I just kept going. Right. You know the difference in an amateur or a failure and one that succeeds is they just keep on going. They just keep on going. So tell me some of your dreams that you wanted to do.
Well, one of the things I love doing is writing, which is one of the reasons why I feel really blessed. But I know it's not an accident that we came together, but I feel really blessed because we've come together, because I know that this is a way for me to take those steps. Almost as soon as I graduated from Christian Women's Job Corps, doors started opening that just weren't open before, because I don't think I was ready. I think God was preparing that time for me to become ready. And you speak of difficulties in your life, but you're right. All you have to do is put one foot in front of the other and keep going. I used to tell people when they would say, well, it's very difficult, I don't understand. You have 3 kids, how can you do it? I would tell them all the time, I would say, well, the alternative is harder than what I have to do, because staying in the same place is much harder than just going and putting one foot in front of the other.
You don't really want to be curled up in a fetal position in the corner of the room. In fact, the next book I'm doing after this one, we're doing backstage. The next one that I really have ready to go to a printer too is called Stumble Forward. And it's about how you have to take the next step. And you can't just fall down and never get up again. And so what were some of the things that made you stumble?
Oh, goodness. Well,
Men
too. But
sin.
Right. And mostly that sin always is where you just don't listen. When you think you have it all together. I used to think, because I did, well in school, and because I didn't make a lot of very, very obvious mistakes that other people would make, I thought, oh, I've got it together. But I didn't have it together. Don't, have it together now. I'm just relying on the grace of God to get from wherever I need to be, from this point to the next point to the next point. And so I always tell people, I started out, I did not even graduate high school. I got a GED because, and that decision was prompted by the fact that when I had my first daughter, I dropped out. And there was some problems.
Tell me about it.
Well, when I had my first daughter, I dropped out of high school. There were some things going on at home, and I just thought I would be better, it would be better for me to be there with her. And I remember thinking when she was about 9 months old, I thought, now, I'll never ever be able to get her to even finish high school if I don't at least get a GED. And so I went back and I got my GED, and I've always been blessed with the right people at the right time to help me get things. And college.
But GED is just as good as a high school graduation. You just don't get to go through it, and it's sad when we don't. But hey, as far as we've done the work, so.
Right, and that was another good thing too. I had to kind of forgive myself for that because I was always very, very shy. You wouldn't know it to know me now, but I didn't talk at all when I was very young. And I remember thinking that school was the only thing I was noticed for when I was a young child. I used to write all the time. I was published in the paper by the time I was in the second grade, I think. So I was always been a writer. But I remember just being devastated because I had to leave school. And I thought that was just the worst thing ever. But things work out. And after I got my GED, I was able to go ahead and go to Calhoun for a few years, stopped, had another baby, and then ended up again at UAH.
Are these the same daddies?
Yes. Yes.
Well, that's a good part.
I just very quickly,
Most of us that have 3 kids have 3 daddies.
Yeah, no. I've always been pretty stable in that response. In that area, I just have, I just wanted to make sure that, as backwards as this is, I wanted to make sure that this person was going to grow up and be the kind of man, because we were very young, the person that he became today. I needed to see that, and he has done that. God has worked in his life just as much as he's worked in mine. We've been really, really blessed.
So you say you went to Calhoun a few years. Did you go actually more than 2 years?
No, I went about a year and a half, and then I realized that I had to start working because I didn't want to get myself into a position where I was very heavily in student loan debt. So I dropped out to go to school because there are things that have to be done when you choose to become a parent, and I want to take care of them. So I had to go to work, and that's what I did for years. And then and I was also committed to that job as a parent. That's my role, and it was important. So what I was doing was I waited until my youngest, who was now 8, but he was 5 at the time, I waited until he was old enough to go to school, and that's when I went on and finished college.
Mm-hmm. And you finished. Then you went to UAH. That's very expensive. How did you get in?
Well, they do have some help for people like me who have children, so I got a lot of Pell Grants, and I was able to do that. And I was able, actually, the last part of the 1 year to get a scholarship for some work I had done. But
what kind of work was that?
I've been published with one of my professors. We did a scientific study for a magazine called Media Report to Women. It was concerning the portrayals of obese people in the media and how they may differ between men and women, and that was very exciting to do that.
I'd like to read that. Is it in booklet form or article form?
Well, they condensed it for the magazine, but it's about, I guess about 35 pages, and if it's scientific reading, but I think you'll be interested in once you look at how some of the things that they do, to how they portray people differently. It's very interesting.
Well, I'm glad you got a student loan, but I had a very unhappy event that happened. Somebody, we're not going to say how many 7 decades I am old, but somebody got we went to buy this house, and they said, well, your credit score is real low. And I said, that's impossible. And they said, no, you have 2 Sallie Mae loans that you've never paid. So somebody had gotten my credit card. They had made loans, student loans, and they were like $8,000 behind. And so they showed, so now we have to, I have to do a police report. And it was really strange. About 2 or 3 years ago, I have an American Express from a long time, and I had signed up one day when you get all this stuff in the mail, and I thought, oh, they talk about identity theft. Yeah, okay, I'll sign up for it. Well, I had that insurance. So now the person is probably going to be put in jail that stole my credit cards and mainly my Social Security numbers, how they got their loans. And they showed I had lived in places I hadn't lived. And so it's going to be straightened out. And I'm glad they have the Sally Mae loans and the Pell Grants and everything. But don't use somebody else's Social Security. Use your own. Please don't use mine. I got to go through so much trouble to get it back. But it will happen. It will happen. And I had to pay. So far, it's almost $3,465 in fees that wouldn't have had to pay. So, but go get your own like she did. Pell Grants and then do something incredible and get a scholarship. That's even better. So then, after you got all of that and you're out, how did you get a job at Chamber of Commerce?
Well, Christian Women's Job Corps again. I started there as an intern. So I was interning there, and
There meaning
at the chamber, at the African American Chamber. So I did an internship there, and it just so happened, once again, this is how God works. The young lady who was the executive assistant to our executive director was moving. Her and her husband had gotten a job in Texas. And she says, well, okay, I guess you know what to do now, so you can have the job. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, of course I accept, but I was just amazed and, once again, fascinated by how God works in your life. It just I can't describe. It's very, very true. People don't ever give up. There's no reason to give up, ever.
And to be an intern and you've got a college degree is kind of insulting. What do you mean? I should be the one. I am a graduate of college, but you took it anyway. Tell me a little bit about how somebody could get an internship.
Well, if you're in college, first of all, go to your advisors. They'll help you do that. Secondly, you can take the initiative. You can say to somebody in an office, which is something that I had done at one point. I had gone to, because I'd always known I wanted to be in television and print media, things like that. So I'd gone to a production company locally, and I had just walked in and I said, actually I was doing another internship, and I said, well, hey, this one's about to be over and I'm interested. And I can come in and I can do work for you, no charge, I just want to learn. And I did.
I want a few of those people too.
I did. I just wanted to learn, and you'll be surprised because as soon as I said this, he says, well, in about 6 months or so, I'm going to want to hire somebody for this position so we can train you, and while you're learning, you can, you just have to be willing to accept the things that seem like they might be beneath you, or that may not be. You have to, sometimes your personal life has to suffer to an extent. But what's so good about this is because I was able to pray to God and say, this is my priority. My children are my priority. God always worked it out so that I could do all the things I needed to do between the times that they were in school. Now, there were times when college required me to take a class, once or twice a week. That was after the time they were out of school. But I was also blessed with people, neighbors, family, friends, who would help me get through that point. So it happens.
I got my doctorate and I studied. The study was about latchkey kids and kids who, latchkey kids is, I'm sure you can, just the word will tell you, it's the arsenic hour from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock or thereabouts when the children are home, but mother and daddy, or they might be a single parent, they're in a single parent family, and they do not have anyone to take care of them during that time, and the single parent or even the couple cannot afford to pay anyone, and that is the most dangerous time in a child's day are those hours. So I did a study on that, got to work and go to Washington D.C. and work with some senators and congressmen in their study, and mine was called also, it was how television, internet, latchkey time, video games impact the relationship with parent and child, because a lot of times they've been free for 3 hours and you're going to go tell them to clean their room. And so this is very, we really need help in this area. We do. Now, I know they have Boys and Girls Club, but some of them are not close enough to they don't have a way to get there. They can't get to a bus to get there. Their parents can't drive home and take them over there. So it was very fortunate that you had family and friends, and that's why as family and friends we need to go ahead and say, let me help you through this period of time in your life, and then there'll come a time, what goes around comes around. You may need help someday, and I'll come sit with you when you're old and 80. No, older than that. The woman we're working with on doing her book is 80, and almost 80, and she is just great. And anyway, so be willing. Like she had to have help, be willing to help other people. Find out someone. Don't be bored around home if you're retired. Go find somebody you can help. It'll come back to you. If nothing else, the joy in your heart will it's just exciting. See that?
Right, because God put us here to help each other, and we forget that. A lot of times we go on about our lives, and this is not a judgment against anybody, because I understand as much as anyone, you have, work, and by the time you get home from work, you have to cook dinner, and then you got to help the kids with the homework, so life can be really hectic. But I'll say this, it's so much better for us if we can help people. One of the reasons why I like working at the Chamber is because I'm able to help people. People get to know me because I help them. I feel that part of my mission in life is to tell people the things I've done, show them the mistakes I've made. And
what mistakes? I didn't hear any mistakes.
Well, some of the bad choices I've made, I agree with you that they can't always be.
Okay, we're going to hear it now. What are some of the bad choices?
Well, having children at a young age before I was really able to financially take care of them, those are some choices I made. Even to, break commandments and, fornicate before I was married. Those are choices that people make that they're not right. God doesn't want us to do those things. But I do believe in the end that, just like God uses bad things for the good, sometimes the bad things that happen to us end up being for the greater good. And I do think that my life is meant for that.
Well, we have viewers that may want to know how they could get involved. Tell me what could they do to help at the Chamber of Commerce? What could they do to help other people? Give us some ideas of helping another person.
Well, the best way probably to give help at the Chamber of Commerce, because we have an insulated group of people that are good, very, very good at helping people. But there are some people that don't know. We are the North Alabama African American Chamber of Commerce, but we help anybody. Not sure why we have the name, because we don't. Even people with freckles, anybody. We do not discriminate.
How do you help them?
Oh, we do all kinds of things. We help people who aren't members, get a business idea together. If you come in and you say, I'd like to do this, but I don't know how. We help you get the business plans together. We can help you get loans, the small business loans. We can even help you determine how you maybe can change this or tweak that so that you can have the better experience, so that you won't, start a business and then, quit in 6 months because it hadn't proved profitable. We also help people as members, as a group, cohesively. We do things like we'll go to your restaurant, or we'll send people, we'll do things. So it's more like a big family almost. So.
Well, Nikki, you can say your last name, and all your public is calling, so we need to answer that phone. All right, and thank you for watching. Again, I'm Bonnie Libhart, and bless your heart for watching.
Thank you. God bless you.